Welcome everyone, and we were doing part two. So this is us doing the ranking of the British monarchs. We did English monarchs the last time. So first up, the first British monarch, the one who did the Act of Union, Queen Anne. She helped create Britain during the Act of Union after Scotland went broke, trying to make a colony in Panama, I believe, and they had to do Act of Union to keep Scotland from going broke, which happened multiple times, and to get them together and also keep the union together after Anne died. She made sure it would go to a Protestant. She was quite intelligent, and she was she reigned quite well as queen. She was a good queen, but one thing was her children died very early. Like she had like 9 children, and like all of them died before the age of 7. Though I do believe one lived to the age of 9 and then he died, or something like that, and it's very sad. And she'll be going to A. Now, next, George the First. He took the throne, and he arrived with like 60 cooks or whatever it was, and he's like, they're the party promoter, and he's just he doesn't speak English, and he's barely in it. In UK, he's in Hanover, and he creates the title prime minister because you need somebody to govern for you. He's a C tier monarch. Like he was in Hanover. He died in Hanover. He was buried in Hanover, barely in England. Um, his son George II was the last monarch, British monarch, to actually lead troops into battle, and he was actually did a good reign. He could actually speak a bit more English. Um, he knew how to govern. He was actually good at governing, and Britain grew under him. Yeah, so he'll be going to B. Now, George the Third. Oversaw you started seeing the start of the industrial growth. Um, he grew the British Empire at this point, and he was good at governing along with his select powers because at this point it's semi-constitutional monarchy, not fully constitutional. It's not fully lost all their powers. So he's reigning, and he's pretty good. Now he does lose the American colonies, but that was less of his fault and more of the colonies. A lot of people in the colonies, not all of them, but some of them, wanting to leave, and also his government doing stuff that the colonies wouldn't like. And like he even was like, "Can you just please listen to my government?" He wasn't like going behead them all. Like he wasn't doing that. So he's very much he's very much a B tier monarch, just like his grandfather, because he's his grandfather because his father's named Frederick. Now we have George the Fourth. He loved making architecture. He commissioned Buckingham Palace to go from a house to this massive 700-room palace. He loved art. He built his own crown, which cost him a fortune and bankrupted the crown. He banned his wife from his coronation. He also reigned in the last 10 years of his dad's life because his dad had severe mental illness in the last 20 years of his life, and he was Prince Regent from 1810 to 1820. Then he reigned for 10 years, and he did do a lot of things, but he also was very extravagant. Like he went bankrupt so many times, and he's also personal behavior of marrying a Catholic. He married a Catholic, then he marries the person his dad makes him marry, and then he just never really cares about it. So he's more of a C tier, but he's not awful. Then you have his brother, who's the son of George III, William the Fourth. Now, William the Fourth, he supports constitutional change during the Reform Act era. He's quite honest, but he's not especially influential, though he does help he does help with Victoria because what he did is he tried to reign as long as he could to keep her off the throne until she was an adult, which he does succeed in doing. good on him. He also tried to have heirs. He had like 9 children, but either they died or they're illegitimate. And then he had 2 daughters who I believe died young. So very sad. But he was a really good king, and he's not an influential. He's not one of the greats, but he will be going into B. Now, next we have Queen Victoria. Now, Queen Victoria is one of Britain's greatest monarchs. Her reign she full the Industrial Revolution. She expanded the empire under her reign, though she became Britain's first true constitutional monarch, and had major reform. Also a lot of infrastructure was fixed and palaces were fixed under her reign because of her husband Albert and herself. And she became the first Empress of India. The empire expanded so drastically under her. Her reign was also the longest for a while. She was the probably greatest queen of British Isles. So she will be going in S tier. Now, Edward VII, which, he only had a 9-year reign, but he helped modernize the monarchy. He was personally, he did like mistresses, but he wasn't that controversial person. And he was an alright dude. And he greatly improved, Britain's diplomatic relations. He was able to do it because a lot of the British monarchs, international monarchs, were his cousins and even siblings. So he was able to do that quite well. So he's not as great as his mum, but he's definitely an A-tier monarch. And then you come to his son, George V. And George V, he goes through World War One. He's the one who changes the name from Saxe, Coburg, and Gotha to Windsor. And he's not really good dad, but he's pretty good king, and he goes by the rules. And he makes sure Britain's doing well. Though he does make one drastic mistake, and that's thinking that bringing his cousin, Tsar of Russia, would cause a republic, which definitely wouldn't have. That's not what's happening. I think he was misinformed. Mostly by his advisors. I wouldn't blame it on him. But he would go in A. Now, 1936, Edward VIII comes in, and he's a disaster. He's only on the throne for 9 months, and abdicates to marry his wife, Wallis Simpson, because they wouldn't let him marry, because he's the defender of the faith of the Church of England. He's already a party boy, but the country loves him, and then he just does that. He causes a constitutional crisis, and also the biggest thing, he then goes and hangs out with Hitler, which is that is one thing that's tarnished his legacy since he did that. So he's going to be firmly D tier. Now we get to his brother. Now his brother is currently, and what George VI did was absolutely great. He was able to restore the faith in the monarchy after his brother's, abdication, which tarnished it a bit. And he stayed in London during the Blitz. He rationed out food. He was very loved. And it was genuinely, people were very upset, just like Queen Elizabeth when he died, because he was loved for that. And he's firmly an S tier. And he's also the person who kept going. He was the last emperor of India. He's all these things. He was the last monarch before the end of the British Empire. So he's and then you have Britain's longest serving one, Elizabeth II, who was known for her duties, really, and she also helped modernize it slightly. She was able to modernize it from this area of the Hanover, Saxe-Coburg area, to go to a bit more modern, while still being regal and still the royal family. She was known for, and her service through decades of major changes. She had 16 prime ministers, and she was a great monarch. She helped devolve the empire when it slowly formed out. She would keep places in line, and just a beautiful monarch. S tier. Now, I know people will try to be controversial about this, but Charles has been generally a good monarch. Now, I will address this. him as Prince of Wales was slightly controversial. Now, he never wanted to marry Diana. No, what he did wasn't okay, neither was she. But, you know, he shouldn't have done that. But now he's, as purely as a king, he's doing a good job. You know, he has done it by the book. He's helping slowly modernize the royal family because he's shown how much tax they pay. They pay an exorbitant amount of tax. He showed that how much money they actually give to the government, which is, you know, taking away points from the Republicans. He's done his jobs exceptionally. He's, you know, charmed Trump. He's done all these things, and he's still going by his guns because there are issues in the UK. Like, I know if somebody says it, immigration, but you don't do that by idiots on TikTok saying you need to get rid of them. He's an okay monarch. He is like B tier. I will put him in B tier. Charles III is in B tier currently. He could be A tier at the end of his reign, but he's currently in B tier. So that is my tier ranking of every monarch of Britain. I hope you enjoyed, and I'll see you guys next time.